Welcome to Brother Miller's Notes, as we spend a little bit of time on the translation process of the Book of Mormon. And to put things in perspective, with the Book of Mormon, the author, editor, Mormon, is responsible for 338 pages. Moses, 308 pages he brings to us. He includes those first 5 books of the Bible. Jeremiah, 170 pages of Scripture. Paul, 122 pages. Nephi, 117. And Luke, with the book of Acts included, 103 pages. The writer of Chronicles is 86 pages. Isaiah, the great prophet, 81 pages. The writer of Samuel, 81 pages. John, 74 pages. That's a total of 1,480 pages. And just thinking about the pages of Scripture that are brought to us by Joseph Smith. As a translator, he translates the Book of Mormon, 531 pages. Doctrine and Covenants, the revelations given to him, 280 pages. Pearl of Great Price, 58 pages. And the Joseph Smith translation, few selected parts of Bible, 30 pages. Total of 899 pages. To put it in perspective, Elder Neal A. Maxwell said, "From Joseph Smith, one unlearned and untrained in theology, more printed pages of Scriptures have come down to us than from any other mortal. In fact, as President Holland has pointed out, more than the combined pages available at present from Moses, Paul, Luke, and Mormon." Getting these pages, printed pages, to us really is the call of a prophet, and tutoring under Moroni. Angel Moroni appears to Joseph and tells him that there are gold plates and he is to be translating that. It's a multiple-year process, and when Joseph receives the plates on September 22nd, 1827, he does not immediately take them home. He takes them and hides them in a birch log, hollowed-out birch log. He is with his wife, Emma, and they head back home. Joseph is a day laborer, and he's hired to dig a well in Macedon. Well, things start to happen around town. Joseph leaves the 23rd, 1827, Sunday the 23rd, and it's about Wednesday where they start to get worried, the Smith family, that people are looking for these gold plates. And Lucy and Emma, they're worried about it. Emma goes to Joseph, picks him up, says we're worried. He comes back, and he gets the plates from that hollowed out log. As he comes back, Lucy Mack Smith, that's his mom, says he was accosted 3 times from getting the plates in the log and making his way back to the house. When they're at the house, they send Don Carlos, the brother, to Hiram's house, now he's the older brother, to be able to get a wooden box so they can put the plates in it, and they're going to have a plan for it to bury it. The box, just so you know, that Hiram gave them, has a walnut top and bottom. It is 14 inches by 16 inches. This is a picture of it. The box is in the possession of the patriarch Elder G. Smith family. They put the plates in this box, and they decide that a great place to hide it is under the hearth of the fireplace. And this is a picture of the hearth of the fireplace in the Joseph Smith home. And Lucy records that shortly after Joseph receives the breastplate and they put it in, a mob does come, and they want to search the house. And it really had they barely put everything back when that mob came. The plates are moved from there to the Cooper shop. And that's about Thursday, November 1st. And in the Cooper shop, this is right near the Smith home, they put them underneath the floorboards. And as they put them under the floorboards, they're there for a little while, but then Joseph is inspired to move them. And so now we're about Sunday, November 4th. He moves them and puts them in the loft up by the flax. And he hides them up there, and that night, the Smith family go to bed, and Lucy Mack Smith records that as soon as it was dark, there was a mob that came. The mob comes, and they're led by Willard Chase and his sister Sally Chase. Sally Chase has a little green orb, her little Seer Stone for her, where she is finding out directions and things that are trying to lead them to destroy the gold plates. They rip up the floorboards in the cooper shop. They do find the box and they just smash it. Nothing's in there because Joseph's taking it out of the box and put it up in with the flax. I'll just enter another character that's going to help out a lot. Martin Harris is born in May 18th, 1873. He's the second of 8 children. Wish I had a picture of Lucy Harris, but this is going to have to do. Lucy Harris marries him March 27th, 1808, and they are first cousins. Lucy Harris has an incredible experience at the very start when her husband shows interest in getting in the work. She has a commitment that she makes. She says this, quote, "Joseph, I'll tell you what I will do. If I can get a witness that you speak the truth, I will believe all that you say about the matter. And I shall want to do something about the translation. I mean to help you in any way." Well, she goes home and she does have a dream where she's able to see the plates. She records the next morning. She said that a person appeared to her who told her that she had disputed the servant of the Lord and had said his words were not to be believed, and had also asked many improper questions. She had done that which was not right in the sight of God. After which she said, "Behold, here are the plates, look upon them and believe." After giving us an account of her dream, she described the record very minutely. Lucy Harris offers Joseph $28 then to help out the work of the Lord. So at first, both husband and wife are very supportive. Martin visits Joseph at the Smith home. He also gives an additional $50 as a generous gift because the persecution is there and Joseph wants to relocate. Joseph leaves the Smith farm in December 1827, and they're headed to the Hale farm. Now, this is Isaac and Elizabeth Hale's home. They're only there a couple weeks when they go to the Jesse Hale home. Now, this is, David Hale. This was just next to him on the river, about 150 yards southwest of the southeast of the Isaac Hale residence. This one house is a little special to them because it's one of the few houses they ever owned as a married couple. Now, in December 1827 to February 1828, Joseph copies some characters. He's trying to understand them. He translates some of them. We often see a picture of characters. This is not the characters that Joseph copied off and gave. But this is the one we see. Now, Martin Harris takes these characters in February 1828, and he's going to be gone from February to April. He is going to go to New York City. And this is quite an impressive feat for him. He goes 1,250 miles with a two-mule wagon, small wagon, in just about 2.5 months. That's a lot of ground to be covered. And when he gets to New York, about the 23rd of February, 1838, he goes and sees Samuel Mitchell. Now, Samuel Mitchell he's known as the walking encyclopedia of America. He was brilliant. But he also, as he sees the characters, says, I'll tell you somebody who knows even more about this than me. His name is Charles Anton. So, a couple days later, about the 25th of February, he visits Charles Anton. And this is a conversation that was prophesied and is recorded in Joseph Smith History 164 and verse 65. And in Isaiah 29, 11 through 12, there is this conversation between somebody who's learned, who knows what they're doing, and says, come bring me this book, and I can translate it much better. I can do this for you. So Isaiah says in chapter 29, "And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned," Charles Anton, saying, "Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And the book is delivered to him, Joseph Smith, that is not learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Well, this is, as you probably remember the story, Charles Anton gives him a certificate. Hey, this is authentic. These are authentic characters. Translation's correct. And then says, oh, how did you get this? And Martin Harris talks about an angel. And then Charles Anton gets what he'd given him, the certificate, rips it up and says, I want nothing to do with this. Angels, nope, nada. So Martin Harris returns home. He arrives home about March 10th. It's a Monday, 1828. He's been 40 days traveling. When he gets home, Lucy, his wife, is very upset with him. She was under the impression that she got to go to New York with him. So when he returns after 40 days of being left behind, I think she has taken all of his stuff out, and he is now in a separate bedroom, and she refused to enter and just kind of is mad at him. Martin brings Lucy back to the Smith home to visit, and realizing the emotions at the time, what's going on, and Joseph's mother records this is what happens. As soon as she arrived there, she said she would come to see the plates and would never leave until she had accomplished it. Without delay, she began ransacking every nook and corner of the house, chest, cupboard, trunk, etc. Consequently, Joseph was compelled to take both the breastplate and the record out of the house and secrete them somewhere else. Not finding them in the house, she, Lucy Harris, concluded that Joseph had buried them, and the next day she went out and hunted the ground over adjacent to the house. She kept up the search until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Really, the translation process begins in earnest on the April 12th, 1828. And they work on it until June 14th, 1828, and they have 116 pages that have been translated. Now, with what happens to these 116 pages is going to be another video dealing with Doctrine and Covenants Section 3. But the translation process was done in part by the Urim and Thummim. In the Bible, the Urim and Thummim could be translated as lights and perfections. They're actually elements of the high priest's breastplate, of the Hoshin. It's going to be attached to the ephod. Let me just give you a picture, kind of show you. This is a picture of what the high priest would be wearing. On the front of what the high priest wears is this little square breastplate, part of the upper garment. On it are 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. And there's some symbolism with those stones. Inside that, it's attached to the garments of the high priest, by gold chains. But that little square also provides a pouch. And in the pouch was where the Urim and Thummim would be held. That's where it'd be contained. So the high priest is going to have it on him. Now, this is kind of a little bit of a random trivia, but if you're a little bit of a fan of the Yale, you'll love this. You'll probably know this. Yale has a coat of arms. On the coat of arms is a book, and you'll see 2 Hebrew words that are on the Yale coat of arms, along with some Latin words, lex et veritas, so I don't know Latin very well. The Hebrew words are Urim and Thummim, and scholars believed at the time that they translated light and truth, and that's what they were searching for, and so that's why that's on the coat of arms. Joseph summarizes how the translation process went. He says, through the medium of the Urim and Thummim, I translated the record by the gift and power of God. And oftentimes, we'll see this in pictures, we'll see it in paintings, we'll see it in movies. You have Joseph Smith looking through like a pair of glasses on plates and translating it. What we find is that there are some who know the most who say the least. And those who know less seem to be the ones that say a lot more about this whole translating process. As Elder Russell M. Nilsson said, the details of this miraculous method of translation are still not fully known. One thing that we have learned, and I'm not going to know what percentage is going to be of this and what is Urim and Thummim, but Joseph Smith did have another instrument. He had a small oval stone. They call it the Seer Stone. As a young man in the 1820s, Joseph found this while he was digging a well, and we have multiple witnesses. Emma was one of them, who said that he would take this seer stone and would be able to translate using this seer stone. And as they record, he would put it in a hat because that way he could see the writing on it more clearly. There is a time in Ohio, now this is the minutes of the meeting, it's October 25th, 1831. They're at the Burnett home in Orange, Ohio. And as they're there, you have the who's who of who's in the church at the time. You have Joseph, Hiram, 3 of the witnesses, several of the 8 witnesses. They're all there together at this council meeting. You can call it a general conference. And Hiram looks to them and says, Joseph, it's time. Tell them all the details. Tell them about the translation process of the Book of Mormon. And then Joseph turns to Hiram and the others, and as it states in the minutes, Brother Joseph Smith Jr. said, it was not intended to tell the world all the particulars of the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, and also said that it was not expedient for him to relate these things, and so forth. Emma makes a few kind of notes about the translation process. She states that when my husband was translating the Book of Mormon, I wrote part of it, as he dictated each sentence, word for word. And when he came to a proper name he could not pronounce, or long words, he spelled them out while I was writing them. If I made a mistake in spelling, he would stop me and correct my spelling, although it was impossible for him to see how I was writing them down at the time. She also remarks that of her husband's limited education while he was translating the Book of Mormon, and she was a scribe at the time. He could not pronounce the word Sariah. When he stopped for any purpose, at any time he would, when he commenced again, begin where he left off, without any hesitation. At one time, while he was translating, he stopped suddenly, pale as a sheet, and said, Emma, did Jerusalem have walls around it? When I answered yes, he replied, oh, I was afraid that I'd been deceived. He had such a limited knowledge of history. At that time, he did not even know that Jerusalem was surrounded by walls. The translation process did require that Joseph, I want to say, not only had to have a clear mind, but a pure heart. He had to have the Spirit with him. And one story I think that just illustrates this is one morning when he was getting ready to continue the translation, something went wrong about the house. And he was put out about it, something that Emma, his wife, had done. Oliver and I went upstairs, and Joseph came up soon after to continue the translation, but he could not do anything. He could not translate a single syllable. He went downstairs, out in the orchard, and made supplication to the Lord. He was gone about an hour, came back to the house and asked for Emma's forgiveness, and then came back upstairs where we were, and the translation went on all right. He could do nothing save he was humble and faithful. One other thing about Joseph's reaction is recorded by Joseph Knight Sr. He was at the home in Palmyra when Joseph returned from the Hill Cumorah. He remembered conversing with Joseph Smith about the sacred things that he had just gotten back, the breastplate and the plates. And Joseph said this. He said, it's 10 times better than I expected. He remembered Joseph saying. He recalled further the prophet's particular fascination with the spectacles. He seemed to think more of the glasses or the Urim and Thummim than that did the plates, wrote Knight, for he says, I can see anything. They are marvelous. The Urim and Thummim allow you to see things that are in the past, the present, and the future. And Lucy Mack Smith records of Joseph being able to describe to them Nephite customs and dress, how the things that they were wearing. That would be kind of really fun family home evening, wouldn't it? Gather around, let Joseph tell you some things that he's seen, likely in the Urim and Thummim, about the Nephites in many years ago. Now, Oliver Cowdery was a blessing and inspired to come to Joseph. He leaves a testimony of the translation process. Oliver Cowdery is reported to have testified in court that the Urim and Thummim enabled Joseph to read in English the reformed Egyptian characters, which were engraved by the plates. Neil A. Maxwell continues, if these reports are accurate, they suggest a process indicative of God's having given Joseph sight and power to translate. And this process, just so you know, is described. Joseph would read several, probably sentences. You'd probably do lines. And as you do that, he'd then wait for the scribe to write it. He wouldn't move on until it was correct, as far as the name spelling, and then would read. They're kind of doing little chunks that would enable the person who's the scribe to write it all down. Elder Maxwell says, if by means of these divine instrumentalities the prophet was seeing ancient words rendered in English and then dictating, he was not necessarily and constantly scrutinizing the characters on the plates. The usual translation process of going back and forth between pondering an ancient text and providing a modern reading. While the use of divine instrumentalities might also account for the rapid rate of translation, the prophet sometimes may have used a less mechanical procedure. We simply do not know the details. Whatever the process, details of the process, it required Joseph's intense personal efforts along with the aid of the revelatory instruments. The process may have been varied as Joseph's capabilities grew, involving the Urim and Thummim with perhaps less reliance on such instrumentalities in the prophet's later work of translation. Elder Orson Pratt of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles said Joseph told him that he used the Urim and Thummim when he was inexperienced at translation, but that later he did not need it, which was the case in Joseph's translation of many verses of the Bible. For me, I summarize the translation process. Joseph did use the Urim and Thummim. Some of those pictures we saw growing up, I think, are right. But from eyewitness accounts, and so what we know right now, he also used a seer stone that he would sometimes put in a rock, in a hat. Exactly how that all happened, we don't know, because those who know the most said pretty much the least. And some of those who weren't even there while the translation process were happening seem to be the ones that say the most. I think one day we'll know it a little bit more, how the whole process worked. And I think we'll be fascinated with it. But even more so, we'll feel like we feel now, that it was translated by the gift and the power of God. That I know. Thanks for spending a few minutes as we talked a little about some of the details of the translation process of the Book of Mormon. I hope you have a lovely day. Keep smiling. Bye.